早晨。
Good morning. Before I call the meeting to order, I would like to say something to you. I've discussed with the Deputy Chairman. There were 4 items in today's agenda, and we would go through them one by one. Some members expressed concern that we may not have in time to finish all 4 of them. There is one of them that is under welfare, is the retirement protection. There is a premise for the administration's attendance that we would like to see if Mr. Chow will attend, Mr. Nelson Chow will attend. They said that there is no certainty, and from the CPU there is also Professor Wong. They are somehow related, but they may not give us some concrete answers. But we asked for Professor Nelson Chow to come to us or show us some information about retirement protection. We have not received anything, but our request has been turned down. So what are we going to discuss in that hour? Fiddle our fingers? It would be meaningless. So given that I discussed with the Deputy Chairman that this item will be postponed until either the CPU showed us something or Professor Nelson Chow attend the meeting. There is nothing new from the administration. Well, some officials vented to me that there was nothing new in the administration. So I'd like to say that to you. We don't want to waste that hour. So this meeting will end at sometime past 11, not sometime after 12. Mr. Tan Ka-pil, if Mr. Chow plays an important role in the entire issue, well, perhaps we can find some time to listen to proposals from civic bodies. As far as I know, there are maybe 6 or 7 of them, and we can listen to their views. What's your view? Mr. Eleanor, in the last term of the LegCo, there was a comprehensive review. We spent about 10 meetings on that to listen proposals from various bodies, and the views have been compiled into a report. Perhaps through the Secretariat we can ask Professor Nelson Chow if he's read the report. Hopefully he has. And Mr. Tang, as Mr. Tang said, in the right time we should speak to deputations, but as the chairman said, there is nothing new and we have a very tight schedule. Perhaps with the agreement of Mr. Tang, that can be our next step. Anything else? Dr. Fernando CHEUNG, I agree with Mr. Leung. Of course, we have to discuss it. The subcommittee is waiting in line to start its work. If Professor Chow can't attend, perhaps we can just set it aside. I think he plays an important role. I'd also like to say, we asked for studies done by CPU. Professor Wong said no. Perhaps we write them a letter telling them that if there is no studies, then we won't ask for one, but we know that there are some. Perhaps just give us some recent studies. I think it will be better. What's your view, Mr. Tan Ka-pil? Well, if they don't want to make it public, I do think the chairman has the power to see all the documents. And at least I'd like them to disclose the topic or theme, methodology, of the 5 studies and whether they have engaged outside academic bodies to do the study, or is done in-house. At least some information to find out what's been going on. Deputy Chairman, I share the same view as Mr. Tang. I remember when it comes to the topic, we know of them. We know of all 5, but just the topic or the title. But we would like at least to give us the concluding remark, 5 lines for the of concluding remark for the 5 studies. We're not asking for the full report, but at least give us the concluding remark, whether it's good or not. This is only a humble request. Mr. Cheung, at least give us an explanation. They refuse to disclose them. Why? There must be a reason. We're a civilized society. They conduct studies using public money. It's impossible that we will just let them refuse to disclose any information to us. I told them through the Secretariat that we would like some studies, to be shown some studies by the CPU, but our request has been turned down. Perhaps we will write to them to ask for a report. I think it's only natural for us to ask for the report, not just the topic and the concluding remark. At least I'd like to see 1 or 2 reports. And in the end, if they think that it's difficult to do it, at least show me the reports. In Appendix 1, there are, I don't know whether it's the Secretariat or the administration. There are 5 topics in Schedule 1, but there are only the topics and just a brief information without concluding remarks. In Appendix 1, I suggest we ask for reports, the entire reports. We'll ask the Secretariat to chase them. It's been many years we've heard about numerous reports, but we've been asking for them and they turned us down. We have to know what is going on. And so this is how we deal with it. So this meeting will end at about 11:45. The call meeting to order now. Information issued since the last meeting. There are a number of them, and items for discussion at the next meeting. Any suggestions? Dr. Fernando CHEUNG? You see that I've sent you a letter asking to discuss the inadequate provision of rehabilitation service for preschool children, children who are SEN special education need students, and they are waiting. They are on the waiting list for some 2 years, waiting for special preschool, pre-primary schools. So when they finally get an assessment, it will be 5 years old, and at 6 they will have to leave that special school. For some districts, it's particularly acute. For young children, I think that such services should be provided as soon as possible, so there is an urgency. So I ask members and chairman to consider my request. Now, any other topics you'd like to discuss? For the administration, there is the Guangdong scheme and also the social welfare planning. And Dr. Cheung's suggestion. Any other suggestions? Yesterday, I heard Mr. Cheung in the council meeting about liberal studies. Services to this particular group of children is inadequate. Well, for the Guangdong scheme, I think it's a big topic. Many members will have a lot of views. For the social welfare planning, we asked the administration to have a discussion. So should we add Dr. Cheung's suggestion or wait for the next meeting? The meeting after that, maybe, Mr. Cheung? If there are too many topics, we will not be able to have a meaningful discussion. I'd rather have a more focused discussion. There is another topic. It's the disability allowance. We asked for a report in 4 months' time, so in about July, the report should be due. It's all right for me to have the topic I propose postponed by a month. What I'm concerned is that the social welfare planning will drag its feet, so let us ask whether they have something to show. If they do have something to show, if they only have a little bit to show, then we will discuss the preschool services for children and give the administration another month for the social welfare planning. But of course, it's Bureau Secretary. The Secretary will not say they're dragging their feet. I think maybe we'll decide. The next meeting is the 10th of June. It's a Monday at 10:45. So next topic. Additional funding for short-term food assistance service. I'd like to remind members there are lots of civic community bodies who are operators. So I'd like to remind members that under Rule 83A of the ROP, in a panel meeting, members who have a direct or indirect pecuniary interest in any matters being discussed or being moved, and if members are to speak, they should disclose the nature of the interest before they speak. Mr. Chair? No, I'm just queuing to speak. Well, for the FTU, there is an organization who's providing services for the poor. So if there is indeed interest involved, I will disclose, and I think it's better for me not to chair this item. There is one society under the FTU who's providing services. I don't think they are operating a food bank. I think they're just distributing cheap meals.
Okay, then I'll chair the meeting. Thank you for your trust. I would like to welcome the government officials, and please take us through the paper. Mrs. Michael, Madam Chair, I will walk members through the paper. Well, the Finance Committee of the Legislative Council approved an allocation of 100 million for the short-term food assistance service. And since February 2009, the Social Welfare Department has commissioned 5 NGOs to operate 5 short-term food assistance service projects to help individuals or families having temporary difficulty cope with basic food expenditure. And then we make some changes. We added the provision of food and hot milk coupons. And also FC gave us another $100 million for continuing the service in 2011. Now we are proposing to provide a provision of $200 million so that the service can be extended. The FS made this announcement in his budget speech earlier on. We have met with the 5 existing operators concerning this, and also there are other NGOs running different types of food assistance services on a self-financing basis or using other sources of public funding, including the Hong Kong Council of Social Service. They think that the existing provision is sufficient to cover their food costs, but suggest that the provision for food costs could be adjusted in accordance with inflation. Some of them also suggest that more administrative fees be provided, given that NGOs would need to provide counseling on some cases. And also they want to have a more flexible network, because this is more important for service users. Now, we have looked at our past experience, and we have also taken these NGOs' views into consideration. We are now proposing several service enhancements. First, we propose that the service duration be extended from 6 weeks to 8 weeks. After lengthening this duration, we think that most of the cases can be taken care of, and NGOs may consider providing support beyond the service duration on a case-by-case basis. And second, we would increase the food cost and variety, that is including food costs and administration costs, and that will be a 10% raise. Well, that is to cope with the inflation, and also operators would have more flexibility, and they can provide different kinds of mixture of food items into the service. And also administrative fee is currently set at 50%, and the remaining 85% being food costs. And now we are increasing the provision, and the operators can have more resources for their administration. And according to our past experience, we think it is an opportune time to bring in new ideas, and there will be a new round of invitation of proposals. Now, in some districts, there is more demand, so our 5 districts will now be further divided into 7 districts. So with members' approval, the $200 million will be able to extend and enhance the service. Thank you. Members, a lot of members would like to ask questions. 4 members have already raised their hands, and I suggest that each member be given 3 minutes. Mr. Fernando CHEUNG. Thank you, Chairman. First of all, why are there so many people in need of food bank? And we are not just talking about food bank. Other than this, 5 food banks operated by NGOs, actually there are many organizations in society, including the chairwoman's organization. They are now providing hot meals and coupons to the public. And also some stores and restaurants are very enthusiastic. They are helping a lot of people. I think the government has to review this ASAP. Now we are in the 21st century. We are a rich society. How come there are so many people in need of food assistance? How come the situation is like this? What's wrong with the system? What is CSSA doing? How come so many people are, no matter whether they are receiving CSSA, are still in need of food assistance, including elders and children? Now you are just allocating $100 million or $200 million. Why don't you look into your system? What's wrong with your system? And are there any loopholes in the CSSA system? How come you have to provide this funding in order to cope with this situation? I think the government should really do a soul searching. $100 or $200 million are not enough, and extending the service duration from 6 weeks to 8 weeks and increasing 2 districts, etc. These are definitely not enough. And also, I have talked to food bank operators. I do not have to declare any interest because I am not involved in their daily work. However, I am in this profession. And they told me that, first of all, most of the organizations think that 10 to 12 weeks would be adequate. And actually, we should look at the needs of the people on a case-by-case basis. Well, you are giving discretionary powers to the NGOs. However, if in paper there is a restriction of 6 weeks, then many people will think that this service cannot help them. and this is a hurdle for them to apply for such a service. So the service duration should be extended to 12 weeks. That is very fundamental. And also, you are assisting these NGOs, and most of them are providing canned food, not hot food. And for children, this is not suitable. I hope these services can be enhanced. Well, we'll ask the government officials to answer later on. Next, Mr. Tam Yu-chung. I would like to ask about the administration fee. Now, you are saying that the operating fees can be increased to 15% because some NGOs are telling you they do not have enough resources. So when it's compared with other services, this administrative fee is a bit higher. So can you provide us with the relevant information? Now they want a higher percentage for administration fee. Why is that? Who's going to answer this question? Now, with regard to Mr. Tam Yu-chung's question, our present proposal is like this. That actually the ratio between food and administration has not changed. That is 85% to 15%. And all these are called operational expenses. But some NGOs have given us their views. They said that the food cost should be increased in accordance with the inflation. So there will be an additional 10%. But the ratio has not changed. Now, if we just add food cost and do not increase administrative fee, then the administrative fee will be less. When it's compared with other programs, maybe Mrs. Mack can answer the question. Mrs. Mack. Now, when we look at other services similar to this, the administrative fee will be about 15% or 10%. Well, so this is not particularly high. As for certain NGOs, they hope that the administrative fee can be increased. It is because other than providing food, they also want to provide other services. And this is actually a bit different from the original intent of this service. Yes, we have made some calculations. If we give them 15% administrative fee, they can actually provide some other services. But if the users would like to use other services, we hope that they can be referred back to mainstream services. Now, can you give us a breakdown? Now, for administrative fee, what does it cover? Employing people, case investigation, rental, refrigerator repair, etc. So what does this fee cover? Mrs. Mack? Well, for the administrative fee, if it's for procurement of equipment, we would give them some other provisions. For example, if they want to buy a fridge or other equipment, they can take money from that sum. And as Mr. Tam said just now, the administrative fee would cover the employment of people, for example, recruitment and liaising with food providers and service referral, etc. Mr. Tan Ka-biu? Now, when I look at the government's paper, it does not clearly tell us, well, for the additional $200 million, how many applicants will be covered. Now, in the past 4 years, maybe some families have applied for several times and some families applied for one time only. So I would like to see the figures. And also some members mentioned that for this food assistance service, it is assumed that these people are not on Social Security and suddenly something happened to their family and they cannot have enough money to buy food. So when we look at electrical papers, in 2011, 9,000 CSSA recipients applied for this service. So can you tell me how many people or how many families have applied for this service up to now, and how many of them are CSSA recipients? reflect that these CSSA recipients don't even have enough money to buy food? And are they living in private buildings or in public housing? Are we not providing them with enough subsidy so that they can pay their rents? Can you give us those figures? So there are recipients living in public housing and living in private housing. So what are these CSSA recipients? Are they unemployed or are they single parents? And also about baby milk formula. So for this service, you will be providing baby milk formula to families with babies. And in the past, they didn't provide this. So is the situation improved? And also, 2 big districts will be subdivided into 4 districts. So what's the actually demarcation? Are you going to ask 2 more NGOs to provide services? Mr. Chen, maybe I can answer briefly, and then Mrs. Mack can supplement. As for the figures, is man times in the paper. For those 110,000 people, 1/3 of them make use of the service repeatedly. As for CSSA recipients, when they are in need, the NGOs will provide assistance to them. So according to our record, for those people who receive this service, it's mainly because of sudden change in the family situation. For example, somebody in the family gets sick suddenly and they do not have enough resources to buy food, so they would apply for this short-term food assistance service. As for baby milk formula, we have also noticed that the SWD has been liaising closely with the operating NGOs, and these 5 NGOs have been procuring food in bulk. So there has been no shortage of baby milk formula.
We read from the press that there are some food assistance schemes encountering problems with baby formula. We've liaised with the relevant institution. We found out that this is a program run with the organization's own money, and over the past few months the situation has somewhat alleviated. In any way, we will monitor the supply of food under the food assistance program. Mr. Peter Cheung. Thank you. We would like to see some figures so that we will see what the societal situation is like. Paragraph 19. I do think that this categorization or classification is too general. It says that they are just unemployed or low income or unemployed. I think for CSSA recipient, it's only absolutely necessary that they should be given that. We don't know whether they are actually CSSA recipients. So I do think that the administration should have a more accurate breakdown of the service users. Through the figure, we can conduct analysis about the situation. Is it because CSSA is not enough? Is it the case, like Mr. Tang said, that assistance to people living in private buildings are not enough? What about new arrivals? Those who don't benefit from the relief measures. What about the number of babies, number of elderly people? We, of course, would like to help the administration. You're coming to ask for $200 million. You have to show us that it is sustainable. It's been 5 years since 2008. We need to see a trend. For the 110,000 people, do they go back to ask for assistance? repeatedly, if that is the case, then we will focus to help the 110,000 people. Then there is no need for them to seek help from food bank. So will the administration give us some breakdown about the 110,000 people from 2008 till now? How many of them are repeated users of the service? Probably we're talking about just several tens of thousands. I need the figure from the organizations as they are. I don't even know how many of them are CSSA recipients, Mr. Chan. We will be able to supply you detailed figures after the meeting. For users, they are mainly low-income workers or unemployed, or the unemployed. 47.5% of low-income people, and about 10% of them are unemployed, and about 23% of them are unemployed. Perhaps when it comes to CSSA recipients, I would defer to Mrs. Mack. We understand that they may encounter special situations when they need the assistance. Mrs. Mack. Out of the 115,000 users, about 12% of them are CSSA recipients. Why do they need the service when they are receiving CSSA? Perhaps that they are fallen sick. They have to seek medical attention, to see bone setters, Chinese medicine practitioners. So for the 5 operators, they don't turn away CSSA recipients. They only look at the need of the applicant. And I would like to respond to what Mr. Tang said. Perhaps I will give you time to do that. I will give you time to answer. Mr. Leung Chi-Chung. The question will be brief, and so should the answer be. I'd just like to go through some figures. The administration provided about $140 million for the food bank. So there is about $50 million remaining, helping about 110,000 people. So on average, $1,000 to each person. There has been criticisms that when the administration does something, it always costs more on administration fees than other things. Has there been any comparisons? Would they have saved a lot more on their administrative fees? There is a question that is unanswered. This asked by Mr. Tang. The demarcation will be changed, and as a result of the change, there will be 7 areas. So do they really have such needs? We see that in Tin Shui Wai, Kowloon City, Yau Chim Wong, and Sham Shui Po, these areas have got people who are in need. With the change in demarcation, will it more effectively benefit people in need? In Tin Shui Wai, there are a lot of public housing, but in some other areas there is still a large number of people using the service, but the area's got a lot of private buildings. Mrs. Mack. We invite 5 operators, NGOs, to run the service, because when it comes to resources or network, they are in a better position. We don't have the comparison when it comes to funding or the fees. When it comes to the demarcation, we see that for Kowloon City, Yau Chim Wong, and Sham Shui Po, there are more service users. This is related to the lower household income. We can break this into 2 sub-districts. Samshui is one, Kowloon City and Yaochimong is another. And now Tuen Mun, Yuen Long, Tin Shui Wai is one big area. In the future, we will change the demarcation to Tuen Mun being one and Yuen Long and Tin Shui Wai being another. With the change in the service boundary, there will be continuation. There will be better service provision. So it's now my time. I'd like to clarify that the subsidiary organization of the FTU has not got money from the administration to run the service. There are a lot of poor people using the service. They need clothes, they need meals. And there are quite a lot of them. Some people may say, well, you don't impose any criteria for eligibility. But that is not entirely true. Let me give you an example. For those who are above 65 and living on their own, if we invite them for a meal, a lot of them will turn up. They are elderly people above 65 living on their own. We have the CSSA safety net. There are a lot of services provided by various organizations. The U.S. encounter the same situation, but there are some other systems filling the gap. Now that there are a lot of people who are in need of food assistance, and I believe that there is still people we can't reach out to. We only know of a part of the picture. Mrs. Mack. There is one important point, as mentioned by the chairman. Apart from the administration, we need a participation from civic bodies. We would like to keep improving our provision of welfare services. We make use of social network because we know that there are some elderly people who are mobility impaired and they don't even know that there is such a service. So we need community bodies or personalities, say district councillors, to help us. No. Well, what I was saying is whether there are problems with the safety net. We see there are poor people. So has the administration done any review internally? There are people who all of a sudden become unemployed, then they would turn to food assistance. That's natural. But what we see is that there is a group of people who are in long-term need of food assistance. So is it the case that there are problems with the CSSA, the safety net, or what? Now my time is up. For me, we have Mr. Leung Kwok Hong who would like to speak for the first time. Well, why are the people who are in need in Yaochimong, in such an affluent city, part of the district? Well, because if you're living in public housing, then you don't have to pay high rent. A lot of poor people, they apply for CSSA, they are given public housing. So there is a group of poor people who are out of the safety net. They live in Yaochimong, where there is no public housing. Apart from Oimen Estate and the area over there, there is no public housing, and even that is an old area. It's simple. It's because of high rental. That's why I've been saying that you have to impose rent control, then the people will get help. When people have to spend most of what they've earned on rent, then they don't have enough for food. The second thing is prices for goods. Well, if there is a drop of price for iPhone or electronic or digital gadgets, these people will not benefit. You will have to compile a price index that is relevant to the lives of poor people. Say, for example, the increase of pork prices. If you don't have such information, then how can you make a meaningful measurement? It's just like I've got a very cheap television set. It's high definition, just $3,000. But for the poor people, they will not even have an HD television set. They don't have money for that. They only have money for food. So you need to compile a price index for food. Without that, you can't tackle the problem. You only say that, well, there is inflation, there are some items with prices dropping, but it doesn't help them. They spend money on transportation, on food. So you need to have a price index targeting this group of people, tailor-made for them. You can imagine what plight they are in. They have to ask for food assistance. Well, some counselors are providing services like this. They only charge $10 for one meal. Why don't you do that? Just charge $10 for a meal. Then they can immediately have something to eat.
Does this exist at the moment? Well, later on I'll ask them to answer all the questions in one go. Mr. Yuen-han, Madam Chair, I would like to ask the government officials whether they have noticed this. Well, lately I've seen this video online. And there are some remanufacturer of food. And they actually go to restaurants to look for food waste, or they liaise with supermarkets and food producers. They try to get the food of which the expiry date will end soon, and then they send this food to kitchens, and they would cook the food or retreat the food, and they make them into boxes of rice, and they will distribute such meal boxes. I think this is very meaningful because this tackles three problems at the same time. First, food waste. Second, for the workshop or kitchens, they have to employ people so that they can categorize the food, process the food, repackage the food, etc. So this deals with the unemployment problem of unskilled labor. And also, LegCo has been very concerned about this. That is, we shouldn't be giving out dry food so much. Yes, I understand that there are some hot meal coupons, but still most of them are dry rations. So when food is provided, can certain resources be deployed for this purpose so that these social enterprises can be supported in a certain way? Mr. Smack? Thank you. Yes, indeed, we do have this. When we first launched the food assistance service, we have consulted the industry and the Hong Kong CSS, and we looked at a very important point. That is, we should not brush aside the service of in the private sector. Now, we are supporting the Happy Angel scheme through the Partnership Fund for the Disadvantaged. And also we are building a network together with these NGOs and social enterprises so that we can provide food to the needy. This is a win-win situation for all parties. So after listening to Mr. Smack, actually has the government been providing support to such operators financially? For the Partnership Fund for the Disadvantaged is a matching fund. So when an applicant finds a support from the private sector, the government will match the fund. Mr. Poon? For short-term food assistance service, I think it is a service for people in urgent need for a short time. And as you said just now, 115,000 people have been helped, and 1/3 of them are repeated applicants. So this amount is not low. Maybe that is because of our overall social welfare system. And when I look at the paper, you say that you will be seeking a funding of $200 million from the FC in June, and then in July, you will start a new round of invitation of proposals. So for this invitation of proposals, what's the content? And will there be a public consultation, and will a consultation paper be issued? That is from July to October. There will be a new round of invitation of proposals. Mrs. Mack, thank you. With regard to the new round of invitation of proposals, because this service has been operating for some time, so if we get funding from the FS again, we will conduct a new round of invitation of proposals so that interested NGOs can put forward their proposals. And this is not limited to the existing 5 NGOs that are providing service. We have already liaised with this kind of service providers, and we have talked about our future operations and assistance. So after getting the funding, we will be inviting tenders from the NGOs. We will tell the NGOs what kind of service we expect them to provide. So for interested parties, they can put forward their proposals, and a panel will look at such proposals, and then we will decide on which NGOs will be providing the services to the 7 districts. So it's not only limited to the original 5 NGOs. You will pick 7 NGOs to provide services to the future 7 districts. So there will not be a policy consultation. So when you get the funding, you will try to arrange for continuous operation. Yes, that's correct. Okay, second round of question, Dr. Fernando CHEUNG. Just now, my question was not answered. Loopholes in the policy. Are you going to reveal them? Are there many new arrivals in Hong Kong? And if they have not lived in Hong Kong for 7 years, they cannot apply for this. And some of them have to rely on ported rice. And for students, they can also get meal assistance with an amount of $245 per month. So, do you know that how much students would have to pay for their lunch boxes in school each month? Maybe Mr. Chen can answer this question. Deputy Secretary. Actually, there have been a number of questions, and they are not querying the usefulness of the food assistance service. Many questions are about other aspects of welfare. Yes, we understand this, and the government is not saying that poverty is not a problem. It's facing this problem squarely. So that's why we have the Commission on Poverty. We understand that there are a lot of views in the community. That is, how can we provide assistance to different types of people in a better manner. For our social security network, we are meeting people, for example, people with low income. The Commission on Poverty will be looking into these problems in details. Now, this is our future direction for discussion. But today we are talking about short-term food assistance service, and we are talking about its roles and functions. As for other problems or support for low-income people, etc., the Commission on Poverty will be looking into them. Well, so now they are passing the buck to the Commission on Poverty, and the Commission on Poverty will be looking at it for several years, and then this term of government will end. For students, meal subsidy is to subsidize students who are going to full-day school, and they have to eat at school or eat outside. So, of course, most of the full-day students would have to eat outside, and we are talking about $400 each month. And you are just providing them a subsidy of $200. So the CSSA families do not have enough money to pay for such lunch boxes. Well, we would not stop you from applying for this funding. We just think that is not enough, and you are not providing enough service. But other than this, you have to review the whole system, try to identify loopholes. How come there are still so many problems? And now you are shirking the responsibility onto the Commission on Poverty, and actually it's again the government. It's because it's supported by you, so it's totally bureaucratic. And your answers tell me nothing. Every time they come to our meeting, they will say that they will make some minute improvements. Of course, we won't stop them, but they do not conduct a comprehensive review. So I hope that before they apply to the FC, they have to review the whole system. Why is there a growing need for food bank? I think they should analyze the situation and provide supplementary measures to remedy the situation. This is what they should do. They don't just come to us each time for patchwork. So I think we've asked a lot of questions, so I give you each 3 minutes for answering the question. Maybe Mr. Chen can start first. I hope you can be more focused. Dr. Fernando CHEUNG and other members are focusing on food. And we are not just talking about food. When people are applying for food assistance, it means that there are a lot of problems in our social welfare policies. So, Mr. Chen, maybe you should look at the issues from this angle, then you can answer members' questions. First of all, about CSSA and food assistance, and also meal subsidy for students. And we will look at the CSSA index each year. We will make adjustment every year, and every 5 years, we will look at the usage mode of CSSA recipients, and we will have to ensure that they have enough spending power. And also, just now, members talked about students' meal subsidies. And for our CSSA basic rate, actually it covers expenses on food. That is, when students go to school, they may have to pay for lunch boxes. So we will provide a subsidy. We are providing a subsidy in that area. But when you look at the food cost, we will have to look at the standard rate. This is how we view the situation, and is quite comprehensive. And actually, for food assistance, we are encouraging the NGOs to provide all sorts of services. So, for example, in some homes, it will be quite difficult for them to cook, so we are encouraging them to provide hot meal coupons. And also, they can set up networks with canteens or hot meal canteens, so that the people in need can get an appropriate service. I don't think you can answer our questions. Maybe the subcommittee on poverty will follow up on this. So members, with regard to the additional funding for short-term food assistance service, do members still have other questions? Dr. Fernando CHEUNG, we have talked a lot about this. That is, the service duration is too short. This is very fundamental, and they're not going to review this. For the operators, actually now they are very conservative. They are only talking about 10 to 12 weeks. They have been operating for 5 years. They know the needs of the users. And now the government is just extending it by 2 weeks to 8 weeks. So can the government go back and take a serious look at this? This is very important. The service duration must be lengthened. And also for operators, when it comes to food cost, I think they actually have enough resources. However, they do not have enough money for transport and administration, because transportation fee is very high nowadays. And many of them would have to get money from their own pocket to subsidize administration.
I think it is rather daft to invite tender afresh. Well, because you are thinking about $2.5 million for each operators, you have to seriously consider how you're going to proceed with the invitation of tender. Otherwise, I will object. So let's consider this. They will make the funding application to the FC in June. Mr. Tang? I hope that the FC paper will include the actual boundary of the 5 districts and after the change, the 7 districts, and give me some information about their operating, about the operation. Do you support they're going to the FC in June? No? No objections? Let me say something. For some operators, it is indeed a problem that the period is so short. And you said that you will invite tenders. They can maybe get some donation or some more funding from the business sector or the CCF, say, for example, so that they will have more resources. Thank you. I only have one question to ask. I agree with Dr. Fernando CHEUNG. There are a lot of people who are stuck in Hong Kong. They are awaiting for their refugee status to be vetted. We're talking about thousands of them. I know that they are not eligible to get assistance from Food Bank. Mrs. Mack. For people who are waiting to have their refugee status verified, there is a separate program to help them. They include assistance on housing, food, and petty cash for the daily use. They are living in appalling condition. Food provision is far from adequate. The same goes for the amount of money they have at their disposal. So can you provide such service? Can you make available this service to this group of people? Mrs. Mack. The two programs are for two separate target groups. Food bank provides a food to meet their basic needs. Maybe I will ask further questions later. Let's move on to the next item. The additional provision for Social Security recipients. Let's invite the next group of representatives to come in. Thank you. One member who would like to ask questions. So this is a very simple topic. We overran in the last item. 2 minutes each member. I'll be strict. Mr. Tenka-Bill. Do you want the administration to say a few words? I'm sure you're very familiar with the document. Maybe a brief presentation. Who is to take us through, Mr. Chan? In the budget this year, the FS Financial Secretary said that because of the uncertain external economic outlook and the continued risk of rising inflation, he proposed a series of relief measures, including one-off extra payment by 1 month to recipients of Social Security. We reckon there will be about 1.15 million people, involving about $2.7 billion. If the 2013 budget is endorsed, we will, as soon as possible, make our application to the FC. And then the Social Welfare Department will make necessary adjustments to the computer system to implement the proposal. Mr. Tenka-Bill, 2 minutes. First, the line. For the DA, 40% of them are age 60 or above. So where do they draw the line? Of course, they would like to get the additional month of payment of the OAA. So where is the line drawn? When will they get the OAA, or when will it change to the DA or the OALA? What about CSSA recipients living in private buildings? Would you issue to them an additional month of rental subsidy? It's just like a well-off tenants in PRH units. They are only given the normal rental subsidy. Mr. Chan. For the OALA application, if it's made before December this year, and when the budget is endorsed, they are eligible for the OALA, then they will be issued the additional month under the OALA. And is it the case that they will first get the additional month of DA and then later given the difference between that and the OALA? I would defer to the DS. This year, under the CCF, the Community Care Fund, there are some relief measures. For one person household, they will be given 2,000 subsidy. For a household with 2 people or more, 4,000. Mr. Tam New Chong. Well, there is a filibustering on the budget. The budget may only be endorsed tonight and is later than scheduled. So in relation to the additional payment, the issuance date, will it be later than previous years? Are there any measures to date it back so that it will not be issued later than previous years. Mr. Chan. As far as I understand, if the budget can be endorsed in the coming few days, then in June we will make an application to the FC. In July we will issue the additional payment. And basically it's the same as last year. Dr. Fernando CHEUNG. Of course we will not object to the additional payment because this is a measure to help the poor. Including this year, for 5 years in a row, the administration has, for CSSA recipients or people who are in special needs, issue additional payment. I think the administration should seriously consider the fact that CSSA is not sufficient. Otherwise, they don't need to provide additional payment to give them an additional month payment of 1 month to fill the gap. The CSSA rate has deviated from the basic requirement. The last review was 1996, and there has not been another review to look into what a person will need to meet his basic need. So there should be some studies to look at where the line is in order to meet one's basic need and to review the CSSA rate. Mr. Chan. In the past few years, the relief measures are decided in accordance with the then situation, say for example the economic outlook and our economic development. As the FS said that there is uncertain external economic outlook and continual risk of rising inflation. And previously there was also the financial tsunami. Once every 5 years, there will be an adjustment to the CSSA in accordance with the weighted average of the SSAIP. I'd like to say something about the OALA. This year, if they are eligible, and if they are eligible on the day when the budget is endorsed, they will be given the additional payment. But there is a group of people who are under the automatic conversion changed in April. There are some people who are using the yellow form. When will they get the additional payment? And there's also a group of people who should be on the green form under the automatic conversion, but because of the computer system, they are now on the yellow form, so it's later. So that person should have been given the additional payment, but unfortunately, because of you, they have to use the yellow form and can only get the additional payment at the end of the year. How would you deal with that? Mr. Fong? As the DS said, that if before the end of the year an application is made and approved later, and on the day when the budget is passed, the person is eligible, then they will be given the additional payment. And of course, there is under the automatic conversion is changed in April, and they will get the additional payment in June. For those on yellow form, elderly people on yellow form, if when the budget is passed in June, they are on DA, they will be given the additional payment of DA. And then say in August, their application for OALA is approved. Well, a payment will be made in July, then there will be a next batch of payment made in about 2 months' time, or 2 months after that. So for people who change to OALA later, they will get the additional payment. And if they were given the additional payment of DA, they will be given the difference. If that person passes away and they were eligible, and we will deal with such cases on a special basis. Mr. Leung, you refuse to make a long-term commitment. I filibuster asking for them to give the commitment to embark on universal retirement protection. But they refuse to do so. What kind of administration is it? If there is no systemic change, you will not be able to deal with the difficulties you face, say, poor people, people who become poor because they are disabled. I have a question for you. Have you done any statistics for the additional payment and the various funds capital is used to generate return, and the return is used to provide special services? How much do they come to? Deputy Director or the DS? Deputy Director? We're talking about one-off relief measure. This year is $2.7 billion. Previous years, the amount is different. I will be able to provide you the figure after the meeting. Then I have a question for you. Have you done any calculations? Wait, if you commit $50 billion, what impact will it have on other social or welfare services? Will it affect you so that you will not be able to provide certain welfare services? Who is to take us? The FS said that if the FS said that he would commit $50 billion, will existing welfare services be affected? I think it depends on the direction of our policy. I don't want to elevate it to higher levels, but as I said, we have to consider different factors and to conduct in-depth analysis. I can't say what the change will be in the future.
Second round, Mr. Tan Ka-pil. A very simple question. Now, if it's a CSS recipient living in public housing estate, then he would get this extra month's payment, and then he will also get 2 months rental subsidy. But for those living in private housing, he cannot enjoy this kind of benefits. So for CSSA recipients living in private housing, can the government give them 1 extra month's, that is 1 additional month's payment, or they can do it in an accountable manner? Deputy Director, for the public housing rental exemption is a public housing relief policy. And for CSSA recipients living in private housing, as Mr. Chen said just now, under the Community Care Fund, there will be some assistance. Last year, a sum of money was released, and this year we will continue to do that once. Members, we should wrap up the discussion of this item. Do we support this proposal, that is to submit this paper to the FC in June? I think you support that, right? 1 of extra payment. Now, of course, you want the systems to change, but then we will have to wait. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the third item. Proposal to launch a pilot scheme to further encourage comprehensive social security assistance recipients to take up employment. Let us invite the government officials to come in. We'd like to welcome the Secretary for Labor and Welfare, as well as the Director of Social Welfare. Secretary, can you take us through the paper, please? Yes, thank you. Good morning, members. As for the government's policy, it has always been like this. We encourage CSSA recipients to actively seek jobs in the market so that they can become self-reliant. Eventually, this has been our established policy. In January this year, we have optimized the Integrated Employment Assistance Program for Self-Reliance. It provides on a family basis multifarious and one-stop employment assistance services to able-bodied CSSA recipients. And also, we have had a disregarded earnings arrangements for a long time. We hope that CSSA recipients who work to be financially better off than those relying entirely on CSSA, thus encouraging those who can work to find and remain in employment. By doing so, they can eventually become self-reliant. Now, in order to further encourage them to take up employment, now we have a bold attempt. And actually, this is a breakthrough of government's thinking. Now, for CSSA recipients, and if they are able-bodied and they can work, then we want to launch a saving mechanism. Under the Community Care Fund and the Committee on Poverty, the subcommittees have actually discussed these incentives. For those CSSA recipients who are taking part in this mechanism, a savings account will be set up for them. And then if the amount of balance in their accounts have reached a certain level, then the amount will be given to them, and then the CSSA recipients can leave the safety net. So we are consulting members for your views because we have not finalized the details yet. This is just a outline plan, and this pilot scheme will last for 3 years. And afterwards, we will make an assessment and see if the scheme can become permanent. And there is an annex to this paper, and I would like to talk about this. Now, for the disregarded earnings, the first $800 will be disregarded. So from $801 to $4,200, we will look at half of them. So the total exemption amount will be $2,500 per month. So we will encourage them to work. When they work more, they can make more money. And this is where our savings plan come from. Now, some members may ask, how come we are doing this only? Well, of course, this is a new thinking of the new government, but there are some objective conditions we consider mature now. First, now we are revamping our Integrated Employment Assistance Program for Self-Reliance. So in January this year, we started to reform it, and this is a one-stop service for families. And also we have more than 40 service teams because we have 39 social security officers, and we hope that we can be more focused on helping the CSSA recipient families. And also from 2009 onwards, as you may know, that we already had started a Child Development Fund Pioneer projects. And NGOs have built up experience from the asset-based projects, the management of savings accounts for service recipients. And also the Community Care Fund can play a flexible role. There is no need to change the existing CSSA system on the one hand, and on the other hand, through the pilot scheme, more concrete and objective evidence can be gathered for future reviews on the system. So now all these conditions are mature, so that's why we want to launch this pilot scheme. In the past few weeks, we have done a lot of work, and there have been some late developments, so maybe the Director of Social Welfare can tell you these. Now, for this pilot scheme, this is a new attempt. In the annex, you can see that this is a conceptual paper. As for the details, we are still discussing them, and we welcome members' views. Well, we want to encourage CSSA recipients to take up employment, and also we hope that they can get more pay and eventually they can leave the CSSA net. And now we are providing savings accounts for them, and we already have 41 IEAPS teams, and through NGOs, these savings accounts will be operated. Now, we will be asking CSSA recipients to take part in the scheme. As to how to do that, are we going to identify several districts first, or the different teams will be choosing different cases in a proportionate manner, etc.? All these details will have to be finalized. So initially, we think there will be 1,000 people taking part in this pilot scheme. And the NGOs will be managing the savings account. And in the initial stage, there will be a saving target. Now, we will look at the recipients' number of family members, and there is also an asset ceiling. Maybe 2 times of the asset ceiling would be the cap of the savings. And then we will also be looking at the disregarded earnings. That is the amount over $4,200. Then that amount will be put into the account. And then after they have reached the savings ceiling, then we will return the saving to the family. So this would act as an incentive for encouraging employment. And unless they have urgent medical needs, otherwise they cannot take money from the savings account before they reach the goal. We will still be looking at some details. For example, our office would have to communicate with the NGO teams that we need an IT system to support the system. And also, the savings account would not be physically in banks. These are just records. And then on a regular basis, we will talk to the CSSA recipients, telling them how much money they have in their accounts, etc. So we will continue to design all the details in the coming period of time. Thank you. Members can ask questions now. 6 members have raised their hands. Does another member would like to ask questions? Every member will be given 3 minutes. If you speak for 3 minutes, then actually the government officials can answer your question later. Otherwise, they can make use of your 3 minutes to answer questions as well. Dr. Fernando CHEUNG, now you want to encourage CSSA recipients to save money. Well, although they may not make enough for a month, they belong to the low-income group. Yet this is a new arrangement. You have been talking about this for a long time ago. The government reacted so slowly. Now, finally, you are submitting this paper to us, I think this is good, so I support it. However, for the scale, I think it is too small. You're just talking about 1,000 people. And under CSSA, I think we have about 10,000 families who are low-income families. That is, they're actually working, they have income, but they're still on CSSA. So for 1,000, it's just 1/10 of the total amount. And I think for this scheme, you want to encourage more CSSA recipient families to take up employment. Now you're just talking about 1,000. And actually, these 10,000 families are in employment. So how can you encourage more people to take up employment? Now you're saying in the title that you want to further encourage them to take up employment. I don't think you can serve that purpose, because it's just about 1/10 of the total recipients. And also for the disregarded earnings and 200% of total assets, I do not have any views on them. However, for the initial disregarded earning of $800, that's definitely not enough. Now, if they work for 26 days a month, then actually each day we're talking about $30. Well, that's actually not enough for employment cost. If you take a meal outside, it's more than $30. And also you have to pay for your traffic, you have to pay for your clothing, etc. So I suggest that the government should consider this disregarded earning. It should at least be increased to $1,000. And this, by doing so, we are only talking about $40 a day. And if you go to work, there is a cost. So if you really want to encourage people to take up employment, I think all these should be relaxed. Secretary, first of all, this is just a pilot scheme. We have about 1,000 or so families joining. This is not too much, yes, but we do not have experience. And so we want to start small first. And if we think the response, if we find that the response is good and this can be expanded, this is not cast in stone. We are trying to help people. We want to encourage people to take up jobs. It is good for these people and for the whole society. So we are starting small, and we would like to continue to observe. And if it proves to be effective, we will expand it. As for the 200%, well, thank you for agreeing to us. As for $800, actually in 2007 it was $600, and now it's increased to $800. There has been improvements already.
And since there is a comprehensive improvement, there is a relaxation, we should move forward instead of getting bogged down in some detail. So we will just take that step forward, and we will keep the $1,000 as it is. Let's see how it proceed in the general direction. If you work more, then you will pocket more. Then you can rest assured that you can just devote your time to working. It's been 6 years from 2006. So please include this in your review. Mr. Tam Yu-chung, the DAB has always been asking for a reform of the CSSA. And in 2006, we proposed for a major relaxation of the disregarded earnings, so that when they work, they will be able to take home more money. Now the administration come up with this new plan. We don't object to it. It's been implemented for just 5 months. We want to see how well it's received, and if it's appealing, attracting more people to start working, it will be better for the recipients, and there will be a bigger workforce. So we will wait to see how effective it is. I do think that you have to step up your publicity. And of course, you have to further increase the amount, but we will see. I think it will be most effective with an instant effectiveness seen if you increase the amount. We will continue to make improvement, taking into account the actual situation. In reply to what Mr. Tam said, well, while you're reviewing the CSSA, you should also review whether the $4,200 can be increased. Mr. Poon, in March, some of our members have already made a similar suggestion. We think the disregarded earning amount is too little. If you work, you have to incur cost. You have to pay for transport. You have to eat. It costs at least $80. So for the $2,500, you only have enough money to buy maybe a pair of maybe a set of decent clothes, and there is nothing left on top after spending them all on transport and food. You do need to relax the amount further, so that when they work, they have more money to support the money. And now you say that when you work, there will be put aside in a savings account. It will be your savings, and after they've spent that money, they will come back to you to apply for CSSA. I think it will only increase the administrative cost. So the disregarded earning amount should be increased. Perhaps I will ask the director to expound after I've spoken. I said that the $4,200 should not be increased because we've struck a balance. If we increase that amount, more people will be attracted to apply for CSSA, and people who are already in it will try to stay as long as possible. Say for a four-people household who are healthy, on average they get 11,817. For people who are not CSSA recipients, the lower two decile and 11,810. So it's lower than the CSSA, and it's not fair. And in the end, it will attract people to apply for CSSA. So I'd like to reply to Mr. Ip. For four-person household, the asset limit is 68,000, and we would like to double that. That is, when it reaches 136,000, we will give them back the money. They will have to leave the safety net, and for a period of time, they will have a proper job earning $6,000 to $7,000, and that will meet their basic needs. This is our objective. We hope that they won't come back to us after a year, but we have to closely monitor the operation of the program. Director, Mr. Yik mentioned that participants, after they have got the money saved, they may return to the safety net in a very short time. This is a pilot scheme, and we will be able to see how it works. After the savings been withdrawn, we will track them for 6 months to see how they're doing. And under the pilot scheme, there will be a review. There is a consultant doing the review to see the effectiveness. And when we look at the maximum amount of the savings, we have to consider that the right amount. If it's too low, the money will be spent in no time. They will get back to the safety net. If it's too high, it will take them a long time to save up before the money is released. Mr. Poon Siu Ping. Of course, we support your efforts to encourage CSSA recipients to take up employment. Just now, the director said, under the pilot scheme, about 1,000 people will be asked to participate. A member asked if the number can be increased. So, for this pilot scheme, will there be target groups, say for example age group, the family situation, etc.? You said that there is going to be a review to assess its effectiveness. Will there be some basic standard set that you can compare against? Well, currently there is just 7, but there are over 40 teams of this self-reliance scheme. Why do you only choose so little? Or the selection of participants. We've invited 7 groups of them. Some NGOs are operating the Integrated Employment Assistance Program for Self-Reliance, and they have experience in encouraging participants to save, and it will be easier for them to be part of the team when we implement the scheme. We would select the same amount in the control group. They don't participate in the scheme, but the comparisons will be made. Say, for example, what is their earning, what is their income level, how will they leave the CSSA net. We have yet to finalize the details. We have to have a number of people. Out of the 41 teams, we will maybe select a number that is proportional. You don't have to worry about the selection. We will select participants from households of different sizes, different age groups. There is a part that targets youth employment. Say, for example, My Step. So, of course, under the pilot scheme, it will involve youngsters so that we can see how effective it is. So there will be different age groups and people from different household sizes. We will also be able to look at the effectiveness for people from different background or age group. And then in the future, we'll be able to decide how we can best help people in need. Mr. Leung Yiu-chung. Just now, the Secretary said adamantly that the $4,200 and the $800 will not be changed. Because the $4,200, if it's increased, may encourage people to stay in the safety net. I think he fails to see the crux of the problem. People receiving CSSA very often say to us that it's not that they don't want to work, but if they work, they have very little take-home income. And they have to put in a lot of effort. They have to pay for the transportation, and they have to pay for their own expenses incurred in the employment. They may end up spending more money by working, but they don't take home much more. The last review was 2007, but that was a time before the statutory minimum wage. But now the statutory minimum wage is $30 an hour. So times changed. You can't stay still. You can't stand still. In 2007, maybe people are working for $10, $12 an hour. But no, now $30 an hour. If you refuse to move, refuse to change, then you can't encourage people to take up employment. On one hand, you say you want to use the savings account pilot scheme to encourage people to work, and at the same time, you refuse to change the amount, thereby deterring people from taking up employment. The $800 and the $4,200 need to be reviewed. Will you take the chance to adopt a two-pronged approach? In the past, without this pilot scheme on savings account, there are exemptions encouraging people to work. And in the past, your efforts were not too successful because the amount exempted is too low. There is little incentive for people to work. Now you want to step up your effort. Why don't you adopt a two-pronged approach for it to be more effective? Paragraph 9. You said half of the people are within the 800 to 4,200. What about the other half? This time, we have a new way of thinking. It provides flexibility. They don't have to worry that above the $4,200, the additional money earned will be wasted. They can put it aside. Well, for 4 people household, they get 11,817 under CSSA, but if they are working, they only get 11,810. People would want to get the CSSA rather than work. But more important is to take the step forward. There is no ceiling for the savings. You work more, you earn more, and if you can, in the end, save over $100,000. That is a substantial amount. Mr. Tankapiu. There were previous discussions about people who are receiving CSSA for a long time. And some special measures will be implemented on these people. Will there be some this time round? For various reasons, maybe a change of status. Say someone will have to take care of a kindergarten kid, and then, well, then the person is tied down because he can't work. And when the kid is promoted to primary school, still, the kid needed to be taken care of full time. Well, for various reasons, people have to stay in the safety net. People who have got kids in kindergarten, they have to participate in the scheme. They put away monies in the savings account. When a kid is in primary school, they don't have to participate in the scheme. So how long will the money stay in the account? And for people who are not in the self-reliance scheme, can they continue to participate in the savings account scheme? And will you consider extending the scheme to people who are over 60? There are a lot of middle-aged and elderly people. They used to work as a contractor, but after the contract's finished, it's difficult for them to find another job. They would like to work. They are physically fit, even though they are maybe 65. But it's difficult for them to find a job, so they turn to CSSA and treat it as retirement protection. So would you extend the scheme to people above 60 to see how effective it is? And in some areas, say Tongchong, there are a lot of vacancies in the service sector. People in their 60s are working too. Would you have any measures to help them?
Thank you, Mr. Tang. First of all, well, for the recipients to take part in the pilot scheme, maybe some of them have been on CSSA for quite a long time, but we are not targeting these people only. Now, as long as they can still go to work, and if they have taken part in the IEAPS, then they can be taking part in the pilot scheme. So they may have different backgrounds, and there may be different types of recipients. And also for the savings account, when this scheme starts, we will talk to the participants. We will set a saving target for them. And if their income is so much that they would leave the CSSA scheme, then the plan will end. But if they return to the safety nets, then within the 3-year scheme, we will still allow them to take part in the scheme. And this is a pilot scheme, so we hope that we can test whether our goals can be achieved. For the recipients between the age of 15 and 59, they have to take part in the IEAPS. So we are targeting these age group. Next, Chen Hangbang, and then 1B1. Thank you, Chairman. With regard to this scheme, many members have expressed their views, but for the DE, if it can be increased, then we can ensure that for those who leave the safety nets, they really know how to catch fish. Otherwise, they may have to return to the CSSA scheme. So maybe the government should consider raising the DE. And also, under this plan, there is something called urgent needs. So other than medical needs, what do you mean by urgent needs? And who is going to judge that? Is the administration going to judge that? The SWD or the social welfare officer can decide on that. And after saving money, of course, well, I think encouraging people to save money is something very good. However, will the government do this? How about interest? Now, bank interest is very low, and so they cannot gain much from interest. So for CSS or for the CCF, will it consider providing interest, because that can give further encouragement to the participants? Thank you, Mr. Chen. Now, with regard to the whole scheme, we hope that these people will continue to be employed. If he works for 2 years and if he can save $168,000, and including his saving, well, because we are not looking at his own saving, we are just looking at the amounts of 138,000. And also, it's not just about saving. A job is very important. So he won't think that if that job pays more than $4,200, he won't do it. So he can be employed in a job which pays $7,000 or $8,000, and he can remain employed. This is very important, and this concept is significant. And also for urgent needs, well, basically we are really talking about medical expenses. Otherwise, the system may be abused. As for interest, Mr. Chen can tell you that. Mr. Nip can tell you that. Well, there are a lot of details. We still have to finalize them, so we would welcome members' views. For the urgent medical needs, our principle is like this. It should be very urgent. For example, the recipient has fallen ill and he has to undergo certain examinations and he needs to pay for them, then he can make use of the savings. But if the criteria is set too broad or lenient, then we cannot achieve the goal of this pilot scheme. As for interest, we want this scheme to be simple. And if saving target is set, it's already very good. And if interests are involved, then the operation will get very complicated. So we do not want to include that. Well, is the community care fund going to match the savings? Well, for this savings account scheme, the recipient, after saving enough money, actually that amount of money is going to be paid by the CCF. So there is no problem of matching. Ms. Wang Big-wan and Mr. Leung Kwok-hong. Thank you, Chairman. We support this pilot scheme. Some members mentioned that when these recipients go to work, they need to pay a cost. So it is hoped that the deduction limits can be raised. As for age, some members asked a question concerning age just now. Why is it 15 to 59? You say that that is the established practice, but what are the rationales behind this? For people at the age of 60 or above, they can still work very efficiently, and maybe they also want to do part-time or full-time jobs. So why do you rule out this possibility? Our population is aging, and our average lifespan is 80 years. So if a person is 60 or 65 and is still willing to work, why can't these schemes cover them? I haven't heard the explanation. In our community, we need people to take care of our homes, to take care of babies, etc. Well, many of them are females and they are above the age of 60. But they are still willing to provide this kind of service. And they may come from CSSA families. If you rule this out, then for these elderly ladies, it's impossible for them to be covered. So would you reconsider the ceiling of the age limitations? And with regard to transportation fees, we now already have a transport subsidy for people. That's $600 per month if it's working for 72 hours per month. So for these domestic helpers, they can get at least $300 for their traffic expenses, and if they work for enough hours, they can even get $600. And many of them are from CSSA families. So why are we focusing on people between the age of 15 and 59? Now we are talking about able-bodied, unemployed CSSA recipients. Now because we have an IEAPS, and there are NGOs following up on these people already. So we want things to be more systematic in the initial stage. But we agree with you. Our population is aging. We want elders to work if they are willing to do so as well. So this is just the initial stage. If the pilot scheme proves to be successful, and if we are going to run it in the long term, then we would not rule out the possibility of including the elderly. Well, thank you. You think this warrants a review. And also there is a gender issue here. Now for this new pilot scheme, how long do you think it should be run before you review it? Now we have a 3-year plan now. Now 4,200 is the cap. So if you are paid for $8,000 for your job, then you can actually leave the safety net. But we will have to wait for him to save enough money. That is $168,000, and that may take 1 or 2 years. That is the net amount. As for the existing assets, we would disregard that. But of course, that cannot exceed the limit under the CSSA system. For 136,000, that's extra. So if you put them together, then it's over $200,000 in the assets, and he has a job that pays $8,000 a month. So that's already pretty good. So this is how our concept takes off. We want to optimize it in the future. This is something good. We want more people to benefit. So if this proves to be successful, we can advance our plan. Mr. Dr Hon? Well, for this pilot scheme, well, it's because in 1999, the government shifted the responsibility of the fiscal deficit onto other people. Well, it was because of the failure of Deng Hua. There was a fiscal deficit, and that was a political issue. But you treated this political issue as a real issue. I haven't seen a poorer government. Well, if you watch the record of those days, I think you should feel ashamed of that government. Well, for that $4,200, if it's going to be raised, then you think that will attract people to stay under CSSA. That's because the wages are too low. The wage structure is so distorted. That's why people are getting so lower pay. You only increase the statutory minimum wage from $28 to $30, and you said you've done a lot. Actually, you're responsible for this wage level. You are the Labor and Welfare Bureau. And now you're using this as a reason, and you refuse to increase DE. That is putting the cart before the horse. Well, you say that if you increase social security each year, then that would incur a huge cost. Well, how much are you spending on manpower if you are going to implement this pilot scheme? Do you have that figure? How much money are you going to spend on it? Can you calculate? Is that a question? Director, how about manpower cost? Well, for this pilot scheme, well, this is a scheme under the CCF. And the administrative fee is 5% of the project. So how much is that? Well, because we are still finalizing the details of this pilot scheme, we have to finalize the scheme first, and then we can make the calculation. For CCF, if it's 5%, I think you can just distribute the 5% to people, and then they can leave the safety net immediately.
You enjoy very high salary, and they only get very little. So I ask for the figure. Just ask some rich guy to match the amount, to give it to the poor, and then immediately they will be out of poverty. Mr. Cheung, the secretary, painted it as if it was heaven. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? This really is a question. If that amount is used this way, then people will be taken out of poverty. Don't you consider cost effectiveness? I think it's hard. Now it's about 11:44. There are members who are waiting to ask questions, so I'll extend the meeting by 15 minutes to 12. First round, I'm in it, and for the second round, Fernando CHEUNG. I'd like to say a few things. This is a brainstorming session. I think that for different districts, there are different districts. Don't focus just in deprived districts. You have to try it on districts that people find it easy to find jobs or difficult to find jobs. And in cost effectiveness, do you have to increase manpower? I think the administration don't want to increase manpower. If you're using the existing manpower level and they have to do case management, it's very difficult. You want to encourage people to work. Perhaps for each team, you put at least 2 people in, so that they can discuss about cooperation to encourage more people to participate. And once they have joined, they earn $4,000, and then they earn $8,000, and then to $12,000. It's a process. Don't save on manpower. Number 3, the secretary's been saying that they don't want to increase the amount under disregarded earning. But without increasing the amount, it's difficult for people to encourage people to find jobs. Some people would like to have more take-home income instantly. They don't want to wait till they have saved $130,000. and you can increase the amount disregarded. It's a pilot scheme. We're not asking you to make it permanent. So instead of just giving them $2,500 and saving the $5,500, you give them more take-home pay, more than the $2,500. Say they already pocket the $2,500 out of the $4,200, and then for another $4,000 they pocket 10%, so $400 more, and for another level 5%. So the more they work, the more they earn, the more they take home. Every month they have a few $100s to take home, and they have more to spend and perhaps more to save, more money left to save. And maybe in a year or two they will be able to save $130,000. And if they can only take home $2,500, no matter how much they earn, then there is not much incentive for them to work. There is a motion. Please do not leave. We need a quorum. Next, KK Fong. There are a number of important figures. First, 800. 2005 and 130,000. I suggest that these figures will have to be increased. Say for 130,000, in theory they should not stay in the CSSA system. Of course, the longer they can stay out of it, the better. So I have a number of suggestions. First, for the 800, can it be increased to say 1,000? 2005, can it be increased? For the 130,000, I have a suggestion. Can the CCF give some incentive? Say, when the person leaves the CSSA system, and let me assume that the person's ability to earn has reached its maximum, there's little chance for that person to make more. So when the savings reaches $130,000, will there be some kind of bonus given to that person to increase the overall amount? The bigger the amount, the less chance the person will go back to the CSSA system. And can the person's background, education background, work experience be taken into account, and to give them training to increase their earning capacity? Then the better the better job they can find, then the less likely they will come back to the system. Well, the last point, training. All recipients will have their cases followed up by an NGO. Assistance will be given to them to increase their capacity, to help them. It's a one-stop service. For the 800, 2,500, and 136,000. Let me emphasize that it is an example using a 4-person household. The amount is different for 2 or 3 people household. For the Child Development Fund, there is a 400, and on top of that there is a 3,000. We'll have to discuss it with the CCF. We're talking about a substantial amount. And I understand where you came from. Perhaps the director will give a brief supplement. We'll look into the suggestion of Mr. Fong. Participants are also participants of the IEAPS, so we provide with them a training and employment assistance. We have to balance 2 factors. First, it has to be clear and simple. so that we will be able to measure the effectiveness and whether it achieves the goal. And if it's complicated, then the administrative fee cost will be higher. We have to keep that to a minimum. And so we will consider members' suggestions based on these two factors. First round, anyone? No? Second round? Anyone else apart from Dr. Fernando CHEUNG? I'll draw a line here. If we're talking about encouraging more people to work, for this, a pilot scheme of 1,000 people, I don't know how long it will last. 2 or 3 years maybe. If in 2 or 3 years you say, oh, it's successful, it's expanded. But we already have over 10,000 households who are working. There are only 1,000 under the scheme, so we're talking about 1/10 of people who are given the chance to save more, and they're given a chance to leave the CSSA system. So there is no further encouragement to get more people to work. So if you want to encourage CSSA households who have earning capacity to work, you need to take into account the cost to work. So in relation to the 800 and 2,500, you have to raise these two figures. Well, then I have this motion to propose. It says that the panel welcomes the pilot scheme to further encourage CSSA recipients to take up employment, but the amount of the number of beneficiaries is too low. We think that the amount under the disregarded earnings, and Ms. Helena Wong's just make an amendment to by adding the age, by adding dispensing with the age limits to, so that more people can benefit. Ms. Helena Wong, my amendment is to change the last line of the original motion. After disregarded earning, to add to adjust the age limit, to increase the age limit. I'll add one Chinese character, yi, so that it will further encourage people to take up work. Mr. Leung Hwa-hong, I think our members are like secondary school students. What adjustments are we asking them to make? This is, in the first place, a meaningless scheme. So you can make a calculation. How much more are people getting a day or an hour? $2 an hour. $2 more an hour. Secretary, you are the secretary. Wages are low. They don't have an incentive to work. We're dealing with a motion now, Mr. Leung. I will not support this motion because this is just hot air. But we're dealing with a motion now. Perhaps I will read out the amended motion. This panel welcomes the pilot scheme to further encourage CSSA recipients to take up employment. However, the number of beneficiaries is too little. The panel is of the view that the amount of disregarded earning should be relaxed substantially, and the age limit be raised, so that more people will be encouraged to take up employment. Those in favor, please raise their hands. 7. Those against, please raise their hands. Yes. Thank you. Abstention. 2. So the motion is endorsed. Well, let's see if the administration has anything to add. Thank you. Secretary, we'll reflect the views to the working group. There being no other business.